Well, good day to you and thanks for your time. Today I wanted to talk about Telstra. So let me start by acknowledging that I know I've got the timing on this recommendation wrong, by pointing out that I'm still 100% convinced that I've got the facts here right. So I think the key thing here is where I differ from the market. And where I differ from the market is that I'm convinced that the next 12 months are maximum pessimism for Telstra and the telecommunications market, whereas the market in general seems to capitalise that this maximum pessimism is going to remain forever. I think you can simply look at the share prices of stocks like BHP and Woolworths over the last few years to see that whether you're a cyclical stock or a defensive stock, there are cycles. At the end of the day, competition waxes and wanes, investor sentiment waxes and wanes, and the same thing applies for Telstra. And I believe it's all on the waning side at the moment where there is maximum pessimism. So I think to be a Telstra bear, you really need to assume four things, which is what the market seems to be assuming. First, that NBN competition remains forever and it remains at maximum velocity. Now, if you look at the NBN, it is a once-in-a-lifetime churn event, so clearly once-in-a-lifetime means it's not going to happen every year. If you look forward to the next 12 months, it's the peak churn event. So you're likely to see, I think, around 2.5 million households get unplugged from their legacy connection and plugged into their NBN connection. So it's 2.5 million Australian households. The year just gone, it was probably about 1.5 million households. The key point is the next 12 months is that maximum churn event. Once everyone's moved and migrated, they're not going to do it again because it's a pain. People don't want to do it. So right now we're in the maximum competition event. The land grab is on. Everyone's trying to grab these customers. That's not going to maintain forever in my view. Second point is on the mobile side of things. In the next 12 months, TPG will be launching their mobile offering and it's scared a lot of people in Australia. There's no doubt TPG is a very successful and very aggressive telecommunications company, but I do want to point out a couple of things. Firstly, you need to take them seriously, but secondly, if you look back at the fixed line side of things, TPG has operated in this market for around 15 years, and over the last 10 years, organically they've taken about 15% market share. So they've gone from nothing to 15% of the market with their aggressive offerings. At the same time, Telstra's market share has held roughly around 50%. So interesting to note that what Telstra and TPG are selling is not exactly the same thing. TPG is taking market share from others, not Telstra, and I think you'll find exactly the same thing happens when TPG offer their mobile product in Australia. It's going to be a low-cost offering versus Telstra's premium offering. It's going to have a knock-on effect and it's not going to help, but it is not the end of the world in my view. So I think when we see those numbers come through, they won't be as bad as people fear. Third point I want to make out is if you look at the NBN and NBN margins, clearly the NBN margins are a bad thing for telecommunications companies. They effectively make a third of what they used to per customer. Now, if I said to you, congratulations, you can do the same amount of work and I'm going to pay you a third, I'm pretty sure you wouldn't just sit on your hands and say, that's a fine outcome, I'm happy to do that. So what you'll see, in my view, is over the next little while, you'll see telecommunications companies use alternative technologies to bypass partly or fully the NBN. Each situation is going to differ, but there is no doubt there are situations where you can bypass the NBN and instead of paying $40 or $50 per month for NBN last mile, you can use things like fixed wireless, some of the 5G millimetre wave stuff that's coming out. There's a bunch of these technologies that you can use to bypass the NBN and save yourself as a telco hundreds if not billions of dollars depending on what you do with it. So I think you're going to see the telecommunications companies use alternative technologies and that the NBN margins are not going to stay low forever because simply put, people are not going to put up with it. They're going to use alternative technologies. And if you look at our research, we've done some fairly extensive research that says we don't think the NBN economics will stay this way forever. We think the NBN will be forced to write down the asset base and lower access costs because it's just not a sustainable level and it will be bypassed and it becomes self-fulfilling. So we don't think NBN margins are here forever. And then our final point is 5G. 5G is the next big wave of technology. It doesn't change the world, but it does have a material impact. We think what it means is the cost of moving data will be about half the price on a 5G network versus the NBN. So that's a meaningful difference. If you look at it now, it's about 10 times the price to move a gig of data on a 4G network versus the NBN. So the economics are just not there. But we do think they will become there when 5G comes out in 2020. So we think this is a significant improvement for the cost base of the telecommunications companies. I'm not suggesting they can put all of their customers onto 5G, there's simply not enough infrastructure, spectrum, mobile phone towers, etc., to handle that capacity, because 60 times more traffic goes over the fixed than the mobile networks. But we do think they can offload some of their traffic there, and we do think, again, that's going to help with margins on the fixed line side of things. So look, in conclusion, Telstra, we think there's 4 key things the market is assuming will remain forever, and we're certainly not of that view. Clearly, it's a very different view to the overall market, but we are very convinced on these facts, and we believe Telstra is a buy at these levels. You need to be a patient investor, but we know we've seen the waxing and waning of cycles for BHP, for Woolworths, for Telstra, and we believe we're very close to the bottom with respect to Telstra. So thank you for your time today.